All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Corey Young with the 1334 podcast. I'm here with a great nonprofit, Free Indeed. I can't wait for you guys to actually get to hear a lot of the stories and the statistics with everything behind it. For those that don't know me, I am the chairman of the board here at 1334. And so, we're just going to get right into it. So, Glori, welcome to the 1334 podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. So let's just go ahead and get started. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Free Indeed. And I know you have a story that kind of goes along with Free Indeed, so we'll get after that.
Yes. Okay. So my name is Glori Coronati, and I started Free Indeed about a year ago. So it was around April 2024, and I have actually been doing this type of work since this time of year in 2020. So I started in 2020. I kind of got introduced to what human trafficking was. Of course, back then I thought, okay, like human trafficking, that happens in Thailand or whatever. I did not think that it was a United States problem, let alone a problem locally in Georgia, or more specifically in Albany, Georgia. So my eyes were really open to that. I have done, decades of, not to try to tell my age, but I've done tons and tons of youth ministry and outreach and that kind of thing. My heart is truly for the outreach community and services. So I've done that for so long. And so then when I learned what human trafficking was and the victims of human trafficking that just needed help and a way out, of course it just gripped me, and I'm like, oh my word, maybe this is what I was made to do. And so my eyes were open to it 5 years ago with an organization, and got right to it. And ever since then, I've been doing this line of work. And so it kind of led to me starting a nonprofit last year. And that kind of came about in an odd way. This isn't a quick story, really. I'll try to shorten it, really, really shorten it.
There's no way to shorten it, because I've heard the full story. And I think
when I shorten it doesn't make sense. And so then it's kind of...
But I think also, it's crazy because, I've heard the story, and we were kind of, right there when the story was kind of unfolding. Yeah. Because I remember, and I'll let you, of course, tell the story, but I remember us talking and just praying into this situation. And all of a sudden, it's just boom, this thing happens. It was confirmed by a dream. It was confirmed by this. It was confirmed by a prophetic word. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's just hi, we're here. And then Free Indeed happens.
Right. That's what I'm like. Oh man, you can't really have Free Indeed without having the story behind Free Indeed, because it kind of doesn't make sense if not. So I'll start with this. So I got out of the nonprofit work with human trafficking in mid 2022, and I thought that season of my life was done and over with, even though I still had a passion and desire to do that line of work. I was like, well, maybe God's got something else going on for me. So I was just kind of waited, stepped back and prayed, and was like, all right, God, open another door. If this isn't what you want me in, show me something else and I'll do it. My prayer is always here I am, Lord, send me.
Yep.
And so anyways, by December, it was the week before Christmas in 2022. I had a former youth student that called me through Facebook Messenger. And when I say former youth student, I'm talking about from... Y'all
don't date yourself.
The early 2000s, okay? From forever ago. When I was a 21-year-old who just wanted to get involved with youth ministry and help make a difference for teenagers, because that was the only place you fit in church, really, when you're that age. So I was 21 years old and met this girl named Rachel. And Rachel was in my little small group crew and kind of mentored her and that kind of thing. And so much to my surprise, I hadn't really seen her in 14 years, And she called me on Facebook Messenger December 2022 and said, Miss Glori, I've heard your name on the streets and I heard you help women. And I was like, yeah. And of course she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm hearing your voice again. And all of the emotions that just come with that. And so anyways, I was like, yeah, I actually do. I still do street outreach weekly and all the things. But yeah. I said, I do. I said, what do you need? And she said, well, Miss Glori, I am homeless and living out of my car. I'm with an abusive boyfriend. I am currently on drugs and pregnant. And I was like, ugh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not impossible though. Like, I've got resources. I can figure this out. You know, I said, listen, I've got it. And as soon as she said that, she said, but there's one more thing. And I'm like, great. There's always one more thing. She said, there's actually a warrant for my arrest. And I was like, oh, are you kidding? I'm like, okay, like I can do a lot of things, but like, you know, I'm not the law. I can't help with the warrant. Yeah, right. I can't help you with I'm not the law. So she said that. She said I was court ordered to a sober living place, you know, over the summer. She said, and of course, that sober living place was right in downtown Albany. And she said, I'm not putting the blame on anyone else. It was myself. She said, but she said, to be honest with you, she said it was just a few blocks from my dope dealer. She said it was hard to stay there knowing what was around the corner. Yeah. She said, so I left. And so from me leaving, there's now a warrant for my arrest. And I was like, great. She said, that happened back in August. And I'm like, okay. But of course, I'm like, I'm invested now, right? Yeah. Because this used to be my student. And I'm like, okay, well, I work alongside law enforcement. I work alongside the court system. Yep. I can figure something out. So, of course, I told her, I was like, listen, Rachel, it's okay. Nothing's impossible, you know, with God. I said, we got this. And as soon as I started saying that, she started quoting scripture.
Come on.
And I was like,
wow.
Okay, my girl still got it. Like, she was always really good as a middle school student with quoting scripture. Like, that's the one thing I remembered about her. So I was like, man, okay, my girl's got it. Let's do it. So, of course, I start working my stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm cashing in all my favor cards. You know, I do everything for everybody else. I need a favor. So I'm calling the jails, calling my connections in law enforcement, calling the court system, calling drug court. And I'm like, hey, I need a favor. This is the situation. What can we do? If she, you know, gets right with her legal stuff, what can we do? And they said, if she can surrender herself, she may have to serve some time, but with her being pregnant, if she surrenders herself, you know, we can work this out. Yeah. It's like, bet. When do you want her?
Yeah, when?
Yeah, like when? They said, well, it's the week before Christmas. It's the week of Christmas, Glori. So why don't we do this on January 4th? I'm like, okay. So I call her. I'm like, hey, can you lay low until January 4th? And she said, I've been laying low since August. Yes, I got this. Like, what's 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, we're doing this. So much to my surprise, on January the 2nd, early that morning, I get a phone call from the Doherty County Jail. And it's like, if you would like to accept this call from Rachel, press 3. And I'm like,
wait, it's not January 4th. Hold on.
What? Like, why would she be calling me? Is this a trick? Right? So, of course, I hit that number 3 real quick. And as soon as the phone connected us, I said, what are you doing? It is not January 4th. I said, this is not the plan. And she is sobbing. And she is just saying, Miss Glori, my car battery died. The cops came and ran my plate because my car battery was dead. And saw that I had a warrant for my arrest, an active warrant. And so they picked me up. She said, I'm pregnant, couldn't run. She said, I literally just held my wrist out and was like, cuff me. Like, I have no more fight in me.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's tough. So, yeah, she said, Miss Glori, it's over, ain't it? And I said, I said, not over. I said, but like,
it's a little bit different. Yeah.
And she said, I know. She said, Miss Glori, like with our deal not going through in 2 days, she said, I already know, like, this is it for me. She said, I'm going to be here a while. I said, Rachel, probably so. You know, because I'm like, I don't want to, I'm not making any promises, but I'll do that. No, like, so she was like, Miss Glori, will you please take my baby? And I was like, no. Again, y'all, I'm not heartless, but like, this whole situation, and I haven't seen this girl in 14 years.
And it's not like you're already not a mom. Like, you're already a mom, like in a brand new...
children.
4 children. And now there's like this new baby, not even just like a grown child. It's going to be a fresh
baby.
Child. Yeah.
Yeah. And like my biological baby was 10. So, y'all, to be honest, like, my kids were self-checks at that, you know what I mean? Considering, like, they can do everything for themselves. They don't need to, they're good.
Yeah.
And so, so starting over. And so I told her, I said, Rachel, I don't know about that. Like, that, like, my kill zone is youth ministry and, like, troubled young adults. Like, that's my kill zone. But, like, babies has never been my thing. Like, I'm not one that's like, I want to volunteer in the nursery. Sorry, y'all. Like, I love my kids and, whatever. But I'm like, that's not my ministry. And so I was like, Rachel, that's a lot to ask. And she's just crying. Yeah. And obviously coming off of drugs. And so you've got to think of the whole situation on this phone call.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I said, I tell you what, though. I said, I'm going to pray. I said, our church helps with this thing called Project Birthday Bash, and we provide birthday parties and Christmas for local foster kids. And so I've got some connections, and I'll try to make sure that your baby goes to the very best family. So that was like my solution was calling in Neko. And so, and I said, but I'm going to pray for you. So we started praying right there on the phone. The phone's running out. You've got 30 seconds or whatever, and I'm trying to speed my prayer, and I'm probably stumbling, y'all. That prayer was probably a hot mess. I know it was. So anyways, the phone hangs up. I call my husband, and I was like, listen to this. I know it's only 8 a.m., but I already had a wild day.
Yeah.
And I told him, and he was like, Glori, not no, but heck no. He was like, no. Like, what? This is not. No.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I told her that, I told her, Michael, like, it's not gonna, but we're gonna pray for her, and all those things. So, of course, I'm not heartless. I went to my bedroom and I'm like praying prayers like fire from heaven. Like, I'm praying like every powerful prayer.
You're hitting that Pentecostal tone.
Yep. I'm praying it. Like, I mean, full speed ahead. And I'm just like, God, you're a way maker. Make a way for Rachel and this baby. Do what only you can do. Provide the perfect family for this baby. And when I said that, a picture of a text message came into my head of a text message that my sister had sent me back in August. So, you got to think this is January. Yep. Back in August, my sister sent me a text message. We were on the way to a Savannah Bananas game and just living life. And she said, hey, Glori, listen, she said, I had the craziest dream last night and I can't shake it. She said, I haven't remembered a dream I've had since I was in high school. And I'm not a dreamer. She said, but I had the realest dream last night and I've thought about it all day. She said, but you were in the hospital and you had a newborn baby boy and he was wrapped up in the hospital blanket. And she said, he was beautiful and it was a big deal for some reason. She said, it was a big deal. She said, our family was there. She said, but none of us could figure out like how you had gotten that baby because you had never been pregnant with it, but it was your baby.
Gosh.
So she sends me this text message in August, and I'm on the way to a ball game. And
this is like January, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like in August, and we're talking January. So I'm not thinking about that. And I sent her a message back, and I said, I rebuked that with 3 little laughing emojis.
Yeah.
And y'all, like, that never came into my head again. Yeah. Like, I rebuked it, and she got it off her chest, I guess, and we never spoke of it again. So, of course, when I'm praying these prayers and that text message comes in my mind that I'd forgotten about, I literally had to stop praying and go to my phone and look at my text messages to make sure that really happened. Yeah. And, of course, there it was. And I was just like, oh, man, it hit me. So I screenshot it, sent it to my husband at work, and he called me within 5 minutes, and he's just crying. And he said, Glori, listen, he said, you're going to think I'm crazy. He said, but I heard God's voice so loud.
Come on.
And he said, I want my prodigal daughter Rachel back, and I'm going to use you taking this baby to do it.
I just got chills. I just got chills.
He said, I felt like electricity hit my body. He said, I was hot, and he was like, I know that this sounds crazy. He said, and nobody heard this voice but me. He said, but I know for a fact it was God. He said, and Glori, we're supposed to take this baby. He said, I can't. He said, it was the craziest experience. And of course me, y'all, I'm still in denial. And I'm still like, but
are you sure? Let's lay out our fleece. Let's really make sure that this is God.
Yeah, this is like a lifetime decision. This is... And y'all, again, this is this is a baby that has been on meth and heroin every day in the womb. Like, this is a baby that, like, big drugs.
Yeah.
This is a baby that we don't know the condition. Well, this is a baby that, all the things, y'all.
Yeah.
All the things. And not that that matters, but it was just like, you don't know what the situation's going to be, right? Yeah. And I'm like, this isn't just something we can just willy-nilly, like, well, I think we're going to do it, you know? So, anyways, so we did. I said, Michael, we've got to pray about this. And he's like, all right.
I already know the answer, but we'll pray.
Yeah. So I even like Facebook stalked Rachel's brother, Paul, who was also in our youth ministry 100 years ago. And I even stalked him and said, hey, we got to talk. And I called him that night and I said, hey, this is what happened. What do you think? And he said, don't do it. And I was like,
what voice do I listen to?
Oh, see, you know. But so anyways, because he was just like, Miss Glori, like, you just don't know, like, what, you know, this can, you know, I mean, and y'all, families with loved ones in addiction, it's a different, you know, I mean, they're very guarded at that point. Oh, yeah. They've walked this road with their loved ones for a while. They've already been like, listen, trust me. Yep. You're an innocent bystander. Walk away while you can.
I literally walked through it with my dad. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, you know, you like in Paul's instance, like, you're like, oh, does she really want to get free? Like, come on. Like, I've seen this time and time again. Like, we've gone through this routine. I've heard the same story. And it's like, like, you just don't understand what people are actually going through.
Exactly. So it is. It's usually the loved ones of the person in addiction that are like, run, you know, kind of thing. So I get it, you know. So I get it from his stance. I truly do. But so I was like, oh, see? And he said, I tell you what, Miss Glori, we're going to pray every single day. He said, I know you're torn on this. We're going to pray every single day. Me, you, and Mr. Mike, we're going to pray. And that, you know, for 30 days. And we're going to just know that God's going to answer that within the 30 days. And I said, okay, you're right. Let's do it, Paul. Again, I haven't seen him in 14 years either. And since he was a teenager. And so I was like, okay, we're going to do that. So we did. And almost 2 weeks of me toiling with this whole situation and me praying about it and God telling me over and over and over again. I mean, I was even in worship one. Actually, I was on the way to church. It was January 15th, 2023. We were on our road, about to pull into our church, and Rachel calls from the jail. And she said, hey, Miss Glori, I just want to tell you, I'm sorry for asking you that. I was coming down from drugs. I was emotional, all the things, you know, panicking about my unborn baby. Yeah. She said, but you don't even know me now. She said, I shouldn't have asked you that. She said, I'm sorry. She said, you know, my baby will go into the foster care system and I'll just have to prove myself and that I can, you know, get better and get my baby back. She said, but good news is, she said, I just had a doctor's appointment this week and they did an ultrasound. The baby is perfectly healthy and they told me that it's a boy. And I was like, of course, my sister's dream.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, my
gosh. She was
like,
and also the baby was conceived in August. And so I'm 20 weeks pregnant right now. And I'm like, okay, God.
Conceived in August. Sister has the dream in August.
I'm like, you know, like literally I'm driving to church. And so I know I walked into church that Sunday probably like frazzled more than my normal self. And so I know I probably walked in looking nuts. But I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, God. And then I'm in worship that morning and I'm worshiping and praying. And I said, God, please show me exactly what I'm supposed to do. Like, this is not like a puppy that I'm getting from a shelter. Like, this is a real human being. Yeah. Like, if it doesn't work out, I can't just turn it back into the shelter. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying, like, this isn't a puppy. And when I said that, I immediately heard God's voice say, you're right. This isn't like a puppy that you can return if it doesn't work out. How much more should you be caring about a human life? Y'all. I start crying, and I'm like, no, God, I just wanted you to tell me that you're right.
Yeah.
Don't do it. No. So anyways, on that Sunday, January 15th, 2023 is when I had made the decision. I was like, all right, of course, because my husband was like, all right, Jonah, when are you going to stop running from Nineveh? Like, like trying to Jesus juke me. And I'm like,
but Jesus already just kind of juked you on that one. He already beat the punch.
He already did. But, and so I'm like, gosh, you're right. Okay. So, of course, I arranged it with the Doherty County Jail and went and saw Rachel that week, and which was crazy, not seeing somebody since they were 15 years old and then seeing them 14 years later as an adult and in a jumpsuit as an inmate and pregnant. It was just mind-blowing. But it was so cool to see her and being able to tell her in person that I would in fact take her baby. And it's so funny, then I started sharing with her over the months exactly, what I'd been doing with the human trafficking thing. And she was like, oh my word. She said, Miss Glori, I have been sex trafficked for a long time. She said, my history with that is pretty intense. Yeah. She said, will you help me get into one of those safe home programs that you used to do? I said, of course. I've still got the contacts. I've still got, the resources. I can do this. With or without a nonprofit backing, I can do this, And so I did. And she said, that's what I want. She said, because even when I'm released from here, she said, I'll need healing. Because without that, I'm just going to continue on this cycle of drugs and sex trafficking and incarcerations. She said, I know that I've got to break the cycle and I've got to actually heal from this. And I said, you're right. So it's from that decision. And of course, then she starts telling everybody what her plans were, right?
Yeah.
So then I've got other inmates that are saying, oh my word, that's my same story. I've been trafficked, since I was a small child. Yeah. Will she help me? I don't want to be released, because if I'm released from this jail cell, it's just going to keep going. So that's kind of how this started. Rachel gave birth in May 2023. She named him Isaiah Job, and I was able to get him when he was 2 hours old. And so just God's hand was all in this. Like, to tell all of that, y'all, this is like a book or a movie or something, some kind of documentary.
Yeah.
But
So in
saying that, this is y'all, it's crazy. So that's how this happened. Isaiah was born in May, and his birth mom was locked up and went from one facility to another one in incarceration, and she was just giving me these girls left and right. And it was to the point that my husband looked at me. Of course, I'm doing this out of my pocket, right? Yeah. And all the travel fees and all the phone calls and all the stuff with inmates, having money on their books to make calls, to talk to them about their trauma and to get them the help that they need. To where my husband finally was like, Glori, we got to do something different, because we can't, they're not stopping. They keep coming in, and we can't do this without some kind of financial help from somebody else. You need to start a nonprofit. And funny enough, my mom, actually, most of my life, my mom had a nonprofit called Free Indeed. And she she used to do jail and prison ministry for years and helped people struggling in addiction get into rehabs. So that's what my mom had done for, forever. Yeah. And so, and my mom was not using, her nonprofit anymore. And she had moved to North Carolina and retired life and that kind of stuff in COVID. And so she said that year after year, the IRS would send her the mail that would say, do you want to renew your, nonprofit status? And my mom said that every year that she was like, yes. Or every year she was thinking, well, I'm not using this anymore. But she said that she heard every single year from 2020 to 2024, she heard God say, renew it. I've still got plans for it. And so it didn't make sense, right? So that's silly, because my mom was like, I can't even use this. This is a Georgia nonprofit. I'm in North Carolina. I can't even get into jails and prisons to do ministry because they're all closed down because of COVID. So God, this is stupid. But God continued, was like, no, I've got plans for it. Renew it. So every single year, my mom was sending a check to the IRS to renew.
Not even knowing
Right.
years down the road.
And my mom had been asking me for months. When she saw that I was helping these girls get into safe home programs, she was like, Glori, take this nonprofit. And I'm like, no, I don't want it.
Yeah.
I'm a behind the scenes worker. Like, I don't
want my name on anything. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even like this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that person. I'm like, no. I'm the workhorse behind the scenes. I'm in the gutters with people. Like, I'm in the trenches. Like, put me in, coach. Like, put me out there. Yeah. I don't like all of this. I don't like the admin side of things. I don't like any of that. I don't want a nonprofit. I want to work for other people's nonprofits. And, but God continually was like, no, like, this is what I made you for. Like, this is what I want you to do. So finally, April of 2024, I surrendered and I was like, you know what? I'm going to just do it. All right. I'm going to be obedient yet again. And so that is how Free Indeed, my mom signed it over to me, put my name on all the IRS documentations and all that, and was like, Glori, run with it.
Yeah.
You were made for this, run with it. And I was like, oh, okay. Scared and shaken. I will. Yeah. So that is how this started. So Free Indeed started from essentially an inmate and her baby.
So
that we've since adopted. Yeah. Our adoption went through after 555 days. He officially became a Coronati on December 2nd of 2024. Yeah. 18 months old and he became a Coronati. So, and listen, that's a whole nother documentary.
I don't even know if everybody just like listening to this, but like the whole time, like I'm just getting chills over here because it's like, it's crazy how like, you ask for a new door.
Yeah.
You ask for this open door and then all of a sudden God's like, okay. Right. And you're thinking like, as so many of us do, like we think this door is going to open up pretty quickly, not going to be years and like this long story, but like that's the scriptures. Like it's this long eternal storyline of God's redemptive work.
That's right.
And it's revealing itself in the work that you do. Like it's so crazy to think that like it started from a seed that was planted, 14, 20 years ago. Yeah. Not to date you. Right. 20 years ago, the seed is planted.
Yeah.
This woman in the darkest of nights goes, I remember this woman who cared for me. Let me reach out to her. I'm pregnant. She, and all of a sudden, Isaiah's born. All of a sudden, Free Indeed is still being funded by your mother, who is in North Carolina, because God is telling her, hey, like, keep this renewed. I have something for it.
Yeah.
Like, like, if there was ever a moment where, like, you could go, what did it look like when Gideon put out his fleece to the Lord? And he's like, Lord, just whenever I wake up, let there be dew on it and no dew around. And he wakes up and it happens. And he's like, all right, well, why don't you do it one more time? One more time and we'll make sure that it's okay. And then he does it again like that. Yeah, man, like I could honestly end the podcast right here because like just with that story, it's just like, good night.
Yeah, it's extensive, and like you say, I mean, if anybody asks, like, but do you know that you're supposed to do this? And I'm like, I know that I know that I know. Like, I mean, I've had God's hand has been in every single tiny detail.
Yep.
Of every bit of this, every single bit of this was God ordained, and it was already set in motion years prior. I mean, I never knew when I took that troubled teen under my wing
that it would lead to the nonprofit that it is today.
Never.
Man, God is so good.
And incarcerated in my mom's nonprofit,
Yeah, because I didn't even know that your mom had the nonprofit Free Indeed before. So I thought, I was going to ask, like, where did Free Indeed come from outside of, like, the Isaiah story? Like, where did the name Free Indeed come from? But not knowing that it's already another storyline.
Yeah.
That
it's another storyline. And seriously, like, I met Rachel in 2006 in youth ministry. And my mom had been doing this type of jail and prison ministry for a little bit, for a year or two. And then it was officially registered through the IRS in 2007. So about the same timeline that I met Rachel was when my mom started this nonprofit for incarcerated individuals to get into to get into rehabs. I know, right?
Like this, like you said, like this needs to be like some type of movie, some type of like book. Like if you don't write the book, I'll find somebody to write the book and you can co-author it.
I mean, maybe that would work. I mean, because in all my free time, writing a book just isn't in the cards right now.
Yeah, your free time right now is in saving and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. So that is essentially how, Free Indeed started. And, of course, I've already had, in the years of youth ministry and then working in the mental health field and recovery world. And then it's just every single little piece of this puzzle that you just look at and you're like, okay, God, I guess you really do know what you're doing, huh? Because, I mean, that's how specific those details are and exactly to where I am. And starting with that other nonprofit back in 2020, that's how this
all started.
And now,
it makes sense now.
I'm raising a baby who is from human trafficking.
But
so people will say, so what is your connection? Because they'll say, what is your connection to human trafficking? I'm like, actually,
I'm in the trenches.
Sit down. Do you have 30 minutes? Yeah.
Oh, that is so awesome. Yeah. So, man, like I'm almost speechless a little bit, and I've heard this story, before, but it still gets me every time.
Yeah.
But to get into it, like, because I know a lot of us have seen like the movies that have come out here recently, like A Sound of Freedom, and there's been some other kind of like documentary work out with human trafficking, but I don't think a lot of us understand like how prevalent human trafficking is.
Right.
So I want you to kind of speak on, like, if I could ask the question, like, how prevalent is human trafficking nationally, globally, however you see it?
Yeah.
But also, like, for us locally here in Albany, like, how prevalent actually is it? Because I know 1334 did a documentary with another nonprofit that was working here locally. Yeah. And, like, to see those statistics, like, shocks me. But, like, as somebody who's working in the trenches, like, what do you see is the prevalence of human trafficking, Albany, nationally, and globally?
Yeah. Well, starting off, I mean, it is movies like The Sound of Freedom or the movie Taken with Liam Neeson that people are usually refer to, and they're like, oh, yeah, I've seen, human trafficking, and that's terrible what they do over there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a lot of people's misconceptions.
It's the over there.
Is the over there in Central America, in Thailand and whatever. The misconception is that you're walking in the Target parking lot and a white van comes along and somebody snatches your child out of your arms and drives off. And that's so far from this. I mean, not saying that stuff like that doesn't happen, but y'all, 99.9% of it is the stuff that we see right here in Albany, Georgia. And so you have to kind of understand that, the U.S. is one of the top 3 countries in the world to participate in the buying and selling of human trafficking. Specifically, human trafficking is broken up into, labor trafficking and then sex trafficking. Yep. So specifically sex trafficking, it is top 3 countries in the world, y'all. And we not only buy it, but we produce it, right? A lot of times, people will say, well, yeah, I do know a little bit about human trafficking. I've seen the Sound of Freedom movie, or I've seen that movie Taken with Liam Neeson, and that's just terrible what they do over there. And it kind of hurts us in what we're doing here, because it's like, y'all, that is like 1% of trafficking, right? Yeah. You're not like in the Target parking lot and somebody in a white van's not coming around and snatching your child from your arms, or that kind of thing. Like, y'all, that, I'm not going to say it never has happened or anything like that, but y'all, that doesn't happen. Like 99.9% of the time, human trafficking is from people that you already know. I mean, these are people that are grooming these women and children and even men, but like, this is like somebody that they know. This isn't a stranger from the street. And a lot of times people think, well, that's what happens over there. That's what happens in South America. That's what happens in Thailand or whatever. And it's like, y'all, this is what happens in the United States. This is what happens in Georgia. Yeah. This is what happens in Albany and Lee County. This is a right here problem. And so, statistically, the United States is the top 3 countries in the world for buying and selling commercial sex. So sex trafficking, this is a United States problem. This isn't an over there problem. This is here. We're in the top 3 of buyers and sellers of this. Globally. This is here. This is an America problem. Yeah. And then not only that, but as far as the state of Georgia, people say, well, I'm sure that happens in Texas or Florida or, California. Yeah. You've got all of that with immigrants. That's what they want to think that this is. Yeah. And I have to be statistically, the National Human Trafficking Hotline did a study from 2019 to 2023. Yeah. And they got all their numbers. Now, granted, this is just from people that called in to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, right? So lots of this happens without
even knowing,
right? Yeah. But as far as their most recent study shows that that the state of Georgia is number 4 in the whole United States. We're number 4 for human trafficking. And we are number 2 as far as when you look at our population size. So per capita, per 100,000 people, we're number 2. We're number 2. We're higher ranked than California and all these other places that you think. We're number 2, y'all. Per capita, we are right on up there. This happens in Georgia. More specifically, this happens in Albany and Leesburg. A lot of times people want to say, oh, you probably do it all over, on this side of town or wherever. And I'm like, no, guys, this is right here. We've got to, as a community, I feel like we've got to stop this, sticking our heads in the sand and just pretending like it doesn't happen or not wanting to see that it happens. Yeah. Because, y'all, this is happening right here. This is happening in your child's school. Your child is probably sitting next to a classmate that could have been, trafficked. Wow. This is happening here. And as a community, y'all, we've got to come together. We've got to raise awareness. So that's why I appreciate y'all having me on this podcast. Of course. It's just to raise awareness about it and just to tell people y'all, we've got to raise awareness about this so that we can know the signs, so that we can spot it if we see it, so that we can have open conversations with our children about this, so that if they hear their friend or classmate saying things, that they can alert somebody. If you see something, say something kind of thing. Yep. We've got to be better as a community because it is so prevalent right here where we live. Yeah. I mean, I think, last year, I helped a number of women and children out of human trafficking. My numbers last year for Free Indeed was 24 individuals were helped. So, y'all, you think that's 2 a month. And the majority of those were from right here in Albany and Leesburg. And, but yeah, y'all, this happens right here. My youngest last year that I got out was age 14. Wow. So this is happening. Tons of teenagers, tons of young adults. A lot of times people will say, well, I mean, I'm interested in, helping and knowing more about this, but aren't you just doing the kids? This is, and I have to say, obviously the children are a main priority and that kind of thing. But you've got to think, I can't turn down that 30-year-old woman who has been trapped in the cycles of human trafficking for decades, who also has children that are probably in the next cycle. And in the cycle. So, a lot of times I'm like, if I help that 30-year-old who has, a 10-year-old, I'm helping, it's kind of a 2-for-1 thing. I'm like, I'm helping the whole family break this generational cycles of addiction, incarceration, and human trafficking. We've got to start somewhere.
All right, so you were just talking about like as a community, we kind of need to get together on this kind of thing, and I think, like from my perspective, as somebody that's not kind of in the trenches as you are, it's like you know, how can I help? You know, it's like I don't know anything about how to rescue a woman from a hotel. I don't know, you know, like I'm not going to be somebody that's going to be, you know, aware because I don't know how to be aware of these kind of things. So like for like Free Indeed, and I kind of want to hit this and then we'll hit it at the end again just as a reminder to people. But like, how can people actually help the situation of human trafficking in Albany? We'll just go with Albany and Lee County or, you know, their surrounding counties. Yeah,
definitely. So one way, like we talked about before, is just kind of that awareness piece. Because of course, if you don't know any better, if you don't know the signs like you're talking about, if you don't know how prevalent it is here, then you're not going to know what to do. So I would like to encourage people just to be able to learn more about it. We actually do presentations and trainings and that kind of thing through Free Indeed. So I would love to come and speak to, you know, your local, you know, church group or ladies group or civic organizations, you know, in town that have monthly meetings and that kind of thing, just to raise awareness and be able to, you know, get a mass number of people to say, hey, this is what's going on. What can we do about it? That kind of thing. One thing that, you know, people say, well, you know, what are your needs and that kind of thing with Free Indeed. And I have to say, you know, you hate to be one of those people that's like, money, you know, I mean,
but it's true. But it's so true.
Y'all, it's so true. You know, it takes money to get a girl out of here. It takes money to buy a last minute plane ticket to get them to a safe home somewhere else.
How much usually, like if you could put like a per person cost, like how much like financial backing does like we'll go with like your typical teenage / 30-year-old, however old. Yeah. How much does that usually cost per person?
Right. I would say a good estimate would be about $1,000. You've got to think, you know, and I hate to just put like a number on somebody on a human life.
That's why I didn't, I hate to ask it, but like it's one of those things that like if people don't understand.
Yeah. I know. So it is. It's one of those things that it's like, you know, the average cost would be $1,000, you know, just recently I had to get a last minute plane ticket to Kansas and never been there before. All I knew was the Wizard of Oz. But you know, here it is. I'm flying a girl to Kansas, and here's the thing too. Somebody that has been through so much trauma and has never flown before usually, you can't just stick them on a Delta flight and be like, good luck in the Atlanta airport and in life, you know, goodbye. There's so much trauma there, and the way that these survivors react in an airport, y'all, it's a lot. I mean, and you have to be very trauma informed, and you have to be very, you know, understanding of the abuse that they've gone through. So that means I have to fly with them, or another volunteer has to fly with them. So it not only is it one last minute plane ticket to
It's two,
It's two tickets. It's two last minute flights. So one like that, and we provide their food. We provide, you know, new outfits in a bag and toiletry items. And so that's also stuff that people can help donate if they want to physically give something. Or I tell people a lot of times, some of these, you know, girls that we take, you know, some of them, they are commercial flights. Some of them are, we have partners with Invisible Angels is one partner we use. And we also use the Freedom Aviation Network. But they have pilots and private planes. So sometimes these rescues or these transports are more like getting on a private plane with a girl. And that costs money, you know, for them. And sometimes it is a car ride. So sometimes I'll tell people, I'm like, if you want to like physically give something, a gas card is always appreciated to be able to fill up our gas tank and hit the road. But, and I tell people too, we like to give new clothing. these girls are so used to having the scraps of life.
Yeah.
They usually only have the clothes on their backs when I get them, right? And that's saying.
Yeah, hoping.
That's even, sometimes an understatement. But, like, sometimes that's all they have. Most of the time, that's all they have. And so we like to get them a new outfit because they're already used to being used and abused and that kind of thing. We want them to feel worthy. We want them to feel like, you know what, I'm worthy of a new pair of black leggings and a t-shirt. Like, we're not talking about...
I was even just, like, thinking because, like, I've been around the world, not like physically around the world, but like in the realm of like knowing so many of y'all that actually have worked in human trafficking and like, rescuing and all that kind of stuff. And like, even the first thing that popped into my head whenever you were talking about like new clothes, like they're so used to somebody telling them exactly what to wear, exactly what kind of fingernails to have, everything like that. I remember a story that you posted here recently. I think the woman got her nails done. Yeah. And it was exactly what she wanted. It wasn't a choice that somebody else made for her. But even just like the start of their freedom journey, allowing them to see that they are worthy enough to make their own decisions and how powerful that alone is.
Taking their power back, letting them be them. Yeah. I mean, that was the story you're referring to. It was a teenager. That was a teenager, and she said, we were just talking, and before I transported her, she was looking at her nails because her nails kind of needed to be done, and she looked at them. She was like, oh, these fingernails remind me of him. And I said, what do you mean? She said, my trafficker, she was like, he controlled when I went to the nail shop, what color I got, how long they were. He controlled every bit of that. She was like, and just when I look at him, I'm just disgusted. She said, I'm so glad I'm finally away from him, and that the law enforcement have gotten him locked up now. She said, but these just she said this reminder. Is just a reminder. Yeah. And of course, I just look at her and I'm like, you know what? I can get a donation to get this baby's nails done. You know what I mean?
Come
I'm
on,
like, no. I'm like, I don't even get my nails done, but I'm like, how much do nails cost? And I was like, we're going to the nail shop tomorrow. We're going to get your fingernails done. Like, you should not have to look, as a teenager, you should not have to look at your fingernails and be reminded of somebody that just tortured and abused you.
And it's crazy that it's the small things like that. Yeah. That and I do want to get into like the nitty gritty because like people just don't understand how real and how like abusive this is and how like this is actually a thing that happens. It's Definitely. Like, like you have somebody so controlling that like you eat when they tell you, you do what they tell you, you have the fingernails, the toenails, whatever it is, the hairstyle that they want.
That's right.
You have no sense of choice. You feel less than dirt at that point. And it's those things that remind them of the life that they were like forced into.
Right.
Like that hurts. That hurts my heart.
Yeah. Like, but it is. It's so true. Like you say, I mean, they've never been given anything of their own. Yeah. So a lot of times, like I'll have these, little bags with, a few new outfits in it and some toiletries and whatever. And half of these girls, when I give it to them, they say like this is mine. And I'm like, yeah, that's yours. Like your own stuff. Like there's a few outfits in there to pick from, that are your sizes that you gave me. And I'm like, that's your stuff to take with you. Because everybody likes to go to their new safe home program somewhere, and not walk in empty-handed and like you're the next little charity case. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I'm like, no, like this is yours. Like, and brand new tags on them and whatever. But just to give them that, just to give them some like their self-worth, and to be like, you pick what's in that bag, what you want to wear today. Do you pick whatever? Like, those toiletries are yours, and half of them just start crying. Wow. So just to see them just completely break down over
the smallest of things.
Over the smallest of things, y'all. This is just the smallest of things but it's their own.
Yep, that's the key. It's their own.
And that didn't come you know, a lot, I've had them before ask, they're like, what do I owe you for this? Right? Because in their
there's
world,
always some type of transaction.
That's right. They'll ask me sometimes, so what do I owe you for this? Not a thing. You don't owe me anything. Like, this is yours. But like, for real, what do I owe you? Nothing. Like, this is just because people believe in you. They believe that you're worthy of a beautiful life, and they want you to have something of your own. You don't owe me or anybody else a thing for this. This is yours. No strings attached, I promise. And of course, they're very leery. You know, they have trust issues, obviously so. But, you know,
they've been burned so many times.
And a lot of times, you got to think too, most of these girls have been trafficked by their own family. Yeah. By their boyfriend. You know, that starts out that way in a tricky way, and then before you know it, you know. So yeah, they're very leery of it. But once I show them, like, no, promise, no strings attached, that's yours, they'll just break down and cry.
Because I meant, like, at that point, like, I guess, is it really a question or more of a statement? But it's just like you were saying, like, it might be the boyfriend. It could be the mom, the dad. Yeah. The grandma, the granddad, the uncle, the aunt. Yeah. That, you know, start them in this cycle of life. Because, like you were saying, like, and I think you told me something, not off the record, but before we started the podcast, that a lot of the people that kind of are forced into trafficking, usually the person that is, I want to say, the initiator or the one that's pushing them into this lifestyle, they themselves are battling some type of addiction, whether that be drugs, hardcore drugs, even sex or pornography themselves.
That's right.
That this almost is like the catalyst to lead them into forcing, you know, like you said, like their daughter or their son, because, you know, it's not just limited to females, it's also men who are trafficked, like you said. But, like, to that, like, how hard is it for you to gain that kind of reputation or trust with these women? Or is it something that, like, because you've built the credibility of being in the trenches, you have, I'm going to say it, the street cred for them to go, no, she's legit? Yeah.
I mean, that is it. You know, it's one of those things that word of mouth is the most powerful tool that I've had. And I have been, since I've been doing this for 5 years, it is one of those things where somebody knows somebody that I've helped. And I never expose a girl or reveal who I took at, all that thing, you know, those types of sensitive information. But sometimes I will, if I know that a certain girl is well on her healing journey and that kind of thing, there is a certain point that they get to and that they're far, far, far away and they're never coming back, kind of thing, to where I'll say, hey, I saw that, you know, this is the crowd I used to run with, you know, such and such. She's living a beautiful life. And they'll a lot of times get tears in their eyes and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I got her out. She's living an amazing life. She's doing all the things, you know, and they'll just, it gives me, sometimes I'll have to use that method if they haven't heard my name on the streets and kind of things. But yeah, I mean, these girls, they have trust issues. And you got to think too, 95% of human trafficking victims have a history of sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse. That is one thing I feel like, not to get on my soapbox here, but that is one thing that our local community, like our judicial system, we've got to start prosecuting that harder. Because a lot of times if you look, I mean, if you take a poll right now at the Doherty County Jail and ask them if they have a history of childhood sexual abuse, most of them, I'm not going to say every one of them, but most of them have that common thread. Mm-hmm. And then people will say, well, so you help addicts. I'm not so sure I want to partner with helping people in addiction. They just need to get over it. Okay, so my thing is this.
There's so many things I could say about people that say that, but
I know, me too.
That'd have to be off the record.
Off the record, we'll talk about that. But y'all, you have to understand the stories I hear on a daily basis. The horror story. Y'all, there are not horror movies that could adequately represent the stories I hear daily of the trauma and abuse and things that have happened to them as a toddler, as a 5-year-old, 6, 7, 8-year-old child. Horrific things that you can never wrap your brain around.
Yeah.
And then this goes on. Their entire life, all these people have been known for and used for is a sex item. Okay? Since they were teeny tiny children, they've been a object for sex.
Yeah.
And that is how their brain gets wired. And that is all they know, but they have all this trauma. A lot of this is, I have to say, a lot of this comes from mothers in addiction that need their next fix.
Wow.
And are willing to trade their child to the dope dealer, to the dope man, to whoever.
Yeah. Wow.
You've got to think of the horrific things that happen to these people as children. And y'all, I'm not justifying drug use or any of that, but y'all, if you even heard one of the most mild stories I've ever heard, you would somewhat comprehend somebody wanting an escape and a way to numb the nightmare stories of their life. Not justified, but wouldn't you? I always walk away from that going, no wonder.
Yeah. I meant like it's like you were saying, like a lot of people who are already in addiction lead others to addiction. It's like hurt people.
That's right.
But like when you're battling, that kind of addiction, like first off, like people that say like, oh, you can, set yourself free. Go, just handle it yourself. Like
put it down.
Put your big boy britches on and go. Like walk away.
Right.
They've never struggled with addiction.
Right.
Like they don't understand that like you are exactly what everybody else is saying to them.
Right.
And that leads them in a cycle of feeling I'm not even worthy enough for somebody to come and help me. I can't even help myself.
Right.
And a lot of those people are needing somebody to help them out of the pit.
That's right.
Because they can't do it on their own.
They don't have the resources or even know where to start. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's the thing.
Because all they knew was the streets, or they only knew this life. And so, like, when you have somebody, like, with so much abusive trauma, like you were saying, like, I've seen, statistics on it about, like, how much of the incarcerated, people have had some type of physical, mental, or, sexual abuse.
Yeah.
It's scarily high.
Oh, it is.
And you're expecting them to have all this trauma that has not been healed or helped, get out of incarceration, and then be like, you know what? I'm going to turn a new leaf.
And have the finances to do it.
Exactly.
Or to even know where to begin to start to live a better life. I mean, it's one thing to be like, well, just put it down and get a job and y'all, that is easier said than done.
There's withdrawals. That can kill you. And it's like we already have only recently started getting more focused on mental health.
Yeah.
But like, like the 30-year-old women that you're rescuing, like how many times have they reached out for help and somebody's like, that's not real. It's just get happy. You just are sad. Be happy.
Yep.
And it's like, you're re-putting them in the cycle of mental health and hurt and pain and trauma.
Yep.
And they're just reliving that over and over again.
Yeah.
Like it just, like people just got to understand, and that's why I'm so thankful we finally, y'all, we've been trying this for 4 months, it feels
literally.
like.
Forever.
And everything that can come up to cancel this comes up.
Yeah.
But like I see that as like the truth of what is happening. Like it's shedding light on something that's been so in the dark for so many people.
That's right.
Because like you said, like a lot of us want to close our eyes to it and be like, it doesn't happen to us until it happens to one of your family members.
That's right.
And then you understand that it's real.
That's right. I mean, that's very true. And you got to understand too, human trafficking is the fastest growing, biggest money making crime in the world, specifically in the United States, specifically in Georgia, and in our area. It is the fastest growing crime, because you've got to understand this too. You know, these drug dealers, they're smart. They're in the hustle game, and you know, they see that they can take a drug and they can sell it once, right? And once that transaction is done, you've already sold it. You've made your money, whatever.
Wow.
But if you can find, and these people know how to spot their next victims. Yeah. They know how to spot them. If they can find a human being that they can manipulate and control and force to do things for them, they can do that over. It's
a cycle of income.
The income that it brings. I mean, you're talking about the hustle game. Like that's a very lucrative crime. Sick, but that's what they see. I mean, these traffickers are making so much money. Pretty soon, human trafficking will be the number one crime. I mean, at the rate that it's growing. And human trafficking, y'all, I mean, you can look back in Bible times. Like, this has been going on forever. This isn't a new thing. Yeah. You know, I have to tell people this isn't a brand new thing. Everybody, you know, it's a hot topic thing, I guess, because
the light's finally getting shown.
And to Epstein and that whole case and P. Diddy and people are, you know, so I mean, it's got some hot topic, you know, situations surrounding it right now. But y'all, this goes on right here, and it does. I mean, and speaking back to the mom that is in addiction, that is so out of it and is trading the daughter off for drugs, as mad as it makes me, so many times I've heard the mama's story, and it's even more heartbreaking. I mean, that's all that she has been used to. That's the only thing that she has been on since she was little. Wow. And then this is the generational cycle. Yeah. Like, wow. So then when you hear her story, I'm not saying that it's not wrong, because it is horrible and it's wrong. But then when you hear it, you're like, oh my word. This is literally all you know too. This is the only life you've been exposed to. Your mama used to do this to you. Wow. This is, I mean, nobody just wakes up one day and is like, you know what? I think I want to be on meth and trade my daughter for dope. Like, nobody does that.
That's a cycle of decisions or a cycle of abuse that they've dealt with before.
Abuse. And that's what I tell people too. I'm like, you know, people say, well, why Albany? Why Leesburg? Our poverty rate, y'all, this is no surprise. Our poverty rate is pretty high here. Poverty and addiction. That's why. Yeah.
So, with a lot of this being said, and I know it's a lot heavier of topic, but like, do you see a solution, like not just like locally, but like, because like you were saying, like it's such a hot topic or a hot button discussion, but like those hot topics always fizzle out. So like, what do you see as somebody like in the trenches, like is a solution that we could work towards long term, but also like how do we keep the light on this topic instead of letting it fizzle out?
Right. So that is one thing, you know, I'm constantly I'm constantly networking with safe homes across the country and other programs and organizations like Free Indeed. And I'm asking them those same types of questions. There are organizations in other states that have taken it as far as, getting with lawmakers and changing laws, making things more strict, making it a felony to buy sex. That is something that just came on, up in Georgia. At our Capitol recently, was to change that from being a misdemeanor to a felony. Wow. That needs to happen, and that's very controversial, but that's one thing. That's one thing that we can start with. We can start with, raising awareness about this so that our local judicial system takes these child sex crimes more seriously and prosecutes them, more extensively than your other petty crimes that go on, that they, get a lot more time and, probation for. Yeah. We need to figure out a way to make this. And then also, it is one of those things just to keep it in the spotlight, to keep talking about it. Again, this isn't brand new. Yeah. But this happens so much. It's often referred to as modern day slavery. Yeah. It's any one person owning another person for whatever type of gain is slavery. And it's more prevalent now than it's ever been. Yeah. The number of people. So, you look at slavery over the times, again, even Bible times, but you look at that and it's higher numbers now than ever. We can't let this die. We can't let this topic fizzle out. Yeah. Even after whatever happens. Like I say, I know Epstein and P. Diddy is a hot topic right now, but even after that gets settled, however it gets settled, we have to keep pushing. We have to keep these women and children. Yeah. They deserve this. They deserve somebody standing up and being like, we're taking a stand against this. We're not going to let this continue. We're going to do something about it. Again, I know that not everybody can be in the trenches with me. That's fine. I've got people that are like, hey, listen, I don't have a lot, but here's $10 a month. Sign, go to the website and click donate and do reoccurring giving. $10 a month, y'all. That makes a difference to help fight this. That makes a difference, because it takes money, it takes resources. But our lawmakers, that is one thing that I'm hoping to see. Yeah. Is that to be more of a thing. We got to stop it here. Georgia's out of control.
Yeah, and I meant nationally, we're out of control.
Nationally, we're out of control with this. It's got to be, we've got to keep it at the forefront of our conversations, and I hate to keep, pushing awareness, but we've got to keep. Thing, we just have to know that this goes on and then not forget about it and say, okay, well, I'm sure that it's under control now. I'm sure whatever. No. Y'all, there's so many. Yeah. There's so many.
And like you said before, it's so hard to know the numbers because how many of it is going unreported. Right. Undocumented. Right. I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and it was on one of the most random podcasts I ever would have thought to be able to just hear kind of the statistics of certain things. But it was from, I think she's an ex OnlyFans star or an ex porn star. Right. But she was talking about how even just Pornhub and just pornography in general is one of the number one leading causes of human sex trafficking or modern day slavery. And like you were saying, changing the legislation. Yeah. She was talking about how it's been so difficult to get the legislation changed. And whenever they finally did, Pornhub had to remove 90% of their site. Right. Because 90% of the site was traffic stuff, child sex abuse material, revenge porn, all this other kind of stuff. And I hate to get, as deep into it, but this is the reality of it.
It is.
So as somebody, with Free Indeed, like, how do you see that even with like the porn industry and being like the number one cause of human trafficking?
I definitely see it a lot. There's, there are these sites where, women and minors are bought and sold for sex. And a lot of these local girls even are on these sites. And again, they have to bring in a certain amount of money. They have to, you know what I mean? Like, y'all, no little girl ever dreams as the small child and in elementary school and asking, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, nobody ever says this.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, nobody ever dreams or wants this life. But again, there are individuals, traffickers that control these women and girls and force this. In the porn industry, everything, is online, especially, since 2020, since COVID, there has been a lot of that move and that shift to buying and selling people online.
Wow.
The internet, of course, rose in that time period. Everybody was online and kids in school were online. Parents had to go back to work. Children were at home online doing school and then still unsupervised online. You know what I mean? So not to keep bringing that, but it's like there was. And a lot of times too, especially with children, they can be, I've seen it with my own eyes. They can easily be tricked and manipulated. I've seen so many cases where children are on Roblox or Minecraft or whatever, these little, these little games, and all of a sudden they're friends with some other kid their age
who's actually a 40-year-old man. Yeah.
Yes, that starts gaining a relationship with them, and do you and your family get along? What's your situation? These groomers, they know exactly what to do, and then it turns into, send me a picture or whatever. And then if they send that or use any type of information, even information about that kid's family, and like, well, I'm going to call your parents and tell them you said this, or I'm going to show this picture if you don't send this, and this more.
Yeah.
And that a lot of times, and then those people take those pictures and blast them all over the internet. And so there needs to be steeper punishment for people that do that.
Wow.
And that is a lot of times the introduction into the porn industry.
And the cycle continues.
And the cycle continues, guys. Yeah. I know. Heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff, but definitely stuff that needs to be talked about because it's not talked about enough.
Yeah, for sure. And it is, and I get it. It's awkward because a lot lot of times, people are like, well, let's
not talk about that. It's like,
can you tiptoe around this stuff? And I'm like, y'all, but
if we tiptoe it, we're like, if you continue to tiptoe around the problem, there's never going to be a real solution to the problem because people are still in the dark to it.
That's right.
You can't just tiptoe heaven and hell. No, there's heaven, there's hell. And it's like the same thing here. It's like you can know very little about it, or you can understand that there's so much to this.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so heavy, and I'll say this, because people will often ask me, like, Glori, like, how do you do this? This is a lot. Like, how do you do this heaviest stuff? And it is. Y'all pray for me. But but also I get a front row seat at the success stories.
And the redemption.
The restoration that happens.
Come on.
I get a front row seat seeing a girl that has been dumped off in the biggest sex trafficking motels in town at 11 years old, has a 4th grade education, and I get to see her now as a young adult.
Wow.
receiving that healing in a safe home program, getting tons of therapy.
Come on.
Getting life skills, getting their GED, getting a life, an actual life. I can't even say a life back. They never had one.
Yeah.
But getting a normal life.
Regaining control.
And then get to say, what do I want to be when I grow up? I was never given the opportunities. I never even dreamed of it because I knew it wasn't possible. But getting to decide if they want to go and get a trade, to go to trade school or get a college degree. Like, I get to see that. And I get to see them actually be able to dream about getting married and having a family one day. I mean, y'all, my phone is filled with text messages from these girls that are just so thankful and are like, Miss Glori, I never knew that this could be my actual life. Yeah. Like, I never knew that this was possible. I'm doing this and I'm experiencing that. I've never done this before. I mean, just the things that these safe home programs are helping them achieve. Yeah. And it would have never been possible if we didn't have funds to transport them to a safe home far, far away and get them out of here and get them away from their surroundings so they could actually heal. And actually a lot of people ask too, so what's the difference between a safe home program and a rehab? And I have to say this, or sober living house or whatever. Safe homes, like the definition of safe home placements for survivors of human trafficking, they come with highly trained professional staff that are trauma informed, that offer tons of intense therapy, tons of therapy, life skills, education, all the things. They're usually at least a year long. Most of them are closer to 2 years. A lot of people with such extensive trauma need 2 years. Yeah. But when they graduate those programs, they don't just say, okay, you've graduated, good luck. They help them get established. They help them have a job. That's incredible. They have a stable job. Yeah. They have a car. They help them get transportation. Yeah. Y'all, because that's what prohibits a lot of people from being able to, move forward in life. They'll help them get stable housing. Before they let them out of their program, they make sure that they are fully sustainable on their own. And these safe home programs are free. They're free. It's not a pay to stay kind of thing. But they're free. And so I'll ask people, hey, listen, can you identify as being, a victim of human trafficking? And I'll tell them the definition and all the things. And they're like, actually, yes. And so I'm like, all right, I've got a program for you. But I get to hear the stories. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's why I say I get to walk alongside of them and see the process, because I get them when they're at the lowest of lows. Yep. But to see them on the mountaintops and get their life back, or these adults get get custody of their children back and they're healed and they're whole and get their babies out of the foster system. I get to see that. And it's so cool. That's incredible. What a better way to end on top of the mountain for this whole conversation. Yeah. So Glori, is there anywhere that people can kind of find you, whether that be website, social media, whatever? Yeah. If you could just let us know, we'll put a link also for the website in this. But after that, we thank you for joining the podcast today. It was so awesome to hear kind of the story of how Free Indeed started, with how God kind of ordained this, honestly. Yeah. But then just to kind of hear all the things that human trafficking is, the differences of the misconceptions that we have against human trafficking, and then just kind of the solutions, short-term and long-term. Short-term, helping raise the funds to get one extra girl out of sex trafficking here in Albany. If you would just let everybody know where they can find you, and definitely. Well, thank you for having me. Of course. So you can go to our website. It is iamfreeindeed.com. So you can find us there. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. It's under Free Indeed 229. And find us on there. Follow our updates and our stories. You know, I not only share information on our social media that's like, hey, I've got a girl begging to get out and desperate. Can you help? Here are ways to partner with us. But I also share the glimpses of the girls on these mountaintop experience finally, in sobriety and finally getting their lives together, getting, their kids back, getting all the things. So I get to share those stories. Obviously, I have to be very careful about what I share because their privacy is my utmost concern. But I do want to give people glimpses of that. So please follow us on social media.
Awesome.
Thank
you again.